So in this video, I'm going to go over the process of running a vanilla Java Edition Minecraft server on a Raspberry Pi. If you're looking for a tutorial on how to get, like, let's say a Forge server going, or maybe a Bedrock server, you'll have to look elsewhere because we're not doing that today. So first off, we're going to go over what you need. You're going to need a Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi I have here is my old Raspberry Pi 3 Model B. This is a Raspberry Pi with 1 gig of RAM. It's not exactly the most suitable thing, but it's what I got, and I don't want to use my 5. Definitely would recommend a modern one, like a 4 or a Pi 5. You're also going to need an appropriate power adapter. What I recommend is to just get the official Raspberry Pi power adapter. They're pretty good quality and are not super expensive. You're also going to need some kind of storage. We're going to be using a 16 gig SD card. Definitely recommend getting something bigger than this. You could also use flash drives, external hard drives. If you have a Raspberry Pi that supports the SSD hat, to me that's probably the best option here. You're also going to be needing a computer because this is how we're going to set up the server. Also a recommendation, not a requirement, I recommend a monitor. I'll get into that a little bit later, but you don't need that. Also, I'm going to just make a disclaimer right here. This is just one method of doing this. There is millions of ways to get a Raspberry Pi Minecraft server that are probably not only more secure, but they probably are easier to set up and have a lot more features like automatic backups or web UI. But what I'm showing you here is incredibly basic and very, very simple. First thing you're going to want is the Raspberry Pi imager. This is how we're going to get our operating system. I already have it installed, so let me get that booted up real quick. First thing we're going to have to do is select our device. Ours is a Pi 3, so we're going to select the Pi 3. The next, we're going to have to choose an operating system. We're not going to be using these. We're going to be going to the other Raspberry Pi OS other page here, and we're going to select Raspberry Pi Lite 64-bit. So we're hit next on that. Select our storage. So next we're going to have to choose a host name. Now this is one of the things you're going to have to remember. So write this down. I'm just going to go for Pi 3 server as my host name. Of course, next you choose your locale stuff. And then you're going to have to come up with a username and password. This is another thing you're going to have to remember. You're going to have to remember your username and your password. So we'll hit next. This next step, if you're using Ethernet, you can just skip, but I'm going to be using Wi-Fi because I don't have access to Ethernet. That's why there's something in front of these text box right here, because there's sensitive information being shown. I definitely would recommend doing this now because configuring Wi-Fi via the terminal is kind of a pain. So get it configured now if you need to use Wi-Fi and save yourself the headache later. This next part is incredibly important. We need to enable SSH. SSH will allow us to remote access the Pi from this computer. It makes it a little bit easier for us to do certain things. Of course, next one is customization to use Raspberry Pi Connect. I don't use Raspberry Pi Connect, so I have it unchecked. If you're familiar with it and you want to use it, you can just use it. And then the last section here is telling you the summary of your installation. Lastly, we click on write. There's a little countdown here, and it has this little button here, I understand, erase, and write. Click on that, and we sometimes have to put in a password, specifically on Mac OS, you have to put a password in. So once we have put our password in, it will begin to write to the SD card, and we will return when it's done. Alright, so now that it's done, all we have to do is click finish, and remove the SD card. I can insert it into the Pi, and I have it connected to a monitor. As I mentioned before, monitor is optional, but it does help when you do the first boot, so you can at least see what the Pi is doing. When we plug it into power, the Pi will boot automatically, and if there's a green light, that means it's good. We'll just wait till this goes and boots up. So once you end up with a screen like this and it does not reboot, that means it's ready. And to remote access, it's quite simple. All we have to do is scroll down to find our terminal, open up the terminal application. So what we're going to be using to connect to the Pi is using the SSH command. It's quite simple. Yeah, all you have to do is type in SSH and then type in the username of the Pi, which ours was user, at pi3server.local. Once we hit enter here, verification check. Oh, son of a gun. All right, let's try that again. And there we go. That's what's supposed to happen. We're gonna hit yes on that. So now we type in the Pi server's password, then it should load right into it. So once you see the green text here, that means we are currently in the Raspberry Pi. So the first thing you want to do, you always want to do this, you want to update the system. So what we do is we do sudo apt update, and this will check for the packages just to update the system, and it will take its sweet time. All right, so it's done. Now we need to type in sudo apt upgrade, and this will actually upgrade the system. And we hit Y for yes, and it'll begin to update the system. And in the meantime, let's get our server jar. Now, if we go to the official Minecraft website, we can see that the only download available is for Minecraft 1.21.11. Now, let's say we don't want to use Minecraft 1.20. Let's say we want to use something like 1.7, which is what I'm going to be using. Well, we can actually get the server jar from the launcher. This is a feature they added at some point. I don't remember exactly when they did it. There's two ways you can do it. You can go over to the new installation. You can select your version from the drop-down menu and then click on the server download thing there. Or if you already have an installation like I do, just click the three dots, click edit, and click on the server link. It'll then open up your web browser and download the server jar right here. Now that it's done, now we can install Java. So what we type in here is default JDK headless. This will install whatever the latest version of JDK is. If you need a specific one, you can do JDK 21 or JDK 25. That's what's available currently on the Raspberry Pi repository. There are other ways of getting other versions to work, but from my experience, the latest version of JDK will actually work with previous versions of Minecraft that are supposed to run on Java 8, like 1.7. We hit yes on this, and we'll begin to install our packages. So while we wait for this to download, we need to prepare some things. So we're going to log into another terminal window. So we're going to use the command mkdir, make directory. And we're going to name this thing, I'm just going to call it MC server. That's what we're going to call it, MC server. Doing that will, of course, create a folder in the home directory. So if we do ls, we will see that we have the MC server in there. ls is the list command. Now we can change directory to it by doing cd MC server. And now we're in here. So now we have Java installed. So now how do we get this jar file onto the server? It's quite simple. We use the scp command. And all we have to do is type scp. We can drag our file onto the terminal window and it will create a path. Not sure if every terminal application does this, but it does work on Mac. That's the local file. Now we need our remote, the thing we're transferring to. And this, of course, is quite simple. It's very similar to the SSH command. We type in our username. In this case, it's user. We type in our host name and .local. We put a semicolon at the end, and then we type in the path that we want to go to. So in our case, we want to use the MC server folder we made. So what we do is we do /home, then our username, then MC server. Then we type in the Pi server's password and it gets transferred over. So if we go into MC server here, type ls, we will see we have the server jar. Now that we have it on the Pi here, all we have to do is start the server. So we use the Java command, and then we need to put some parameters. The parameters are going to be xmx512. We put an M at the end, and xms512. But make sure we put the M. Then we go jar server.jar and no GUI. So let's break this thing down real quick. So Java is the command, it's the Java command, it will allow us to run programs. This next parameter here, this is the maximum RAM that the server is going to use. Because we're using a Pi 3, which has 1 gig of RAM, I'm just going to use half of that. This right here is the minimum. Jar, this is, you need to put this here so Java knows what kind of file it is, which was a jar file here. And then the no GUI is to run it without an application window or anything like that. So once we're done with that, we hit return and it should load. Should being the key word here. So it should load and throw this error here. And it has everything to do with this. We have to agree to the end user license agreement. If we go ls in our MC server file, you will see some things now have generated since we started this server jar. We have the EULA here, logs folder, and server properties file. We want to edit the EULA, so we use the nano command, nano, and eula.txt. Nano is a terminal-based text editor, and we can simply go down here and delete the false and type in true. So then we have to hit Control X. If you're wondering what this little caret thing means, it means control. So we do Control X to exit. We hit at Y to select yes, hit enter, and now it is saved. So now if we boot up the server again, we should not get that error message. Instead, it should start generating a world, beginning to generate the world. There we go. So it is fully generated. So let's go to multiplayer. I'm just going to go for the add server here. We'll just call this Minecraft Pi server. And we'll type in the server address. You can either go off of the IP address, or we can type in pi3 server.local. And if we hit done, there's our server, and we can join it. Go back to our terminal window here, see that I have joined, and there we go. Server runs just fine. Well, I mean, obviously it could run better. We can configure the server with the server properties file, but we have to stop the server. And how do we stop the server? Well, we just type in stop, and that will stop the server. Let's use nano again, and this time go into server.properties. And in here we have all of our little properties here and there. It's a 1 gig server, so I'm going to set it to 5. View distance, I'm actually going to set that to 8. IP address, all the little stuff that you would have in a regular old Minecraft server. Minecraft Pi server. Same thing, Command X, Y, and then hit the enter key, and then we can start the server up again. And as you can see, our changes have been made. A Minecraft Pi server. I'm actually going to use direct connect. Just type in the same thing you typed into the add server, but in direct connect, and you can load into the server the same way. Now, there's one more thing that I want to show all of you. Every time you want to boot the server, you have to type in this command, but you don't have to. You can actually make a shell script. It's like a little program. They execute a set of commands in the shell. They can be incredibly violent and incredibly dangerous. So just don't use random shell scripts you get off the internet. But this is a very simple shell script that we're going to call start, and we do .sh. That is the file extension for a shell script. So we're going to be using bash. That's what we're going to be using, which is the system that PiOS uses. A £, a exclamation point, a slash. We're going to go bin/bash. Basically says this is a shell script. This is where, and this is like the file path to all like the commands and stuff. So basically all you have to do is just type your terminal command in. Do the same thing here. Save it to file, and we should have our start.sh in here. Now we can't run it just yet. We have to set it as an executable. So we have to do chmod +x start.sh. That'll make it executable. Then we can do ./start.sh. And it should load the server, should being the keyword here. And there we go. Server is loading. We should be able to get connected to it. Now we don't have to type in that big command. We can just type in /start.sh. And yeah, there we go. And there we have it. A fully functioning Minecraft server on a Raspberry Pi. I think this is a very fun and fairly simple thing you can do with the Raspberry Pi. It's a nice fun little way to get introduced to the terminal and basic networking. As I mentioned earlier in the video, there's tons of ways of doing this. A lot of these methods are a lot simpler, more secure, and have a lot more features in them. But I just use this method because of how stupidly basic it is. But anyway, I think that'll be the end of this video. If you have any suggestions on how to get a Minecraft server running on a Raspberry Pi, let me know in the comments. Also, if you have any ideas of what else I can do with this Raspberry Pi. Thank you all for watching. God bless you all, and we'll see you next time.